There we go. Welcome to A Medium's World. We are day 4 of the conversation tonight with a special guest, Pamela Beamish. Before we begin, I just want to take this moment to say how incredibly grateful I am to have so many people from around the globe tuning in, being a part of this conversation. It brings me so much joy to know that not only are there people seeking and who are looking to know themselves better as mediums, but of course, that this is becoming a modality and a way of life for so many people around the globe. More importantly, I really feel like now more than ever, in consideration of the waves of growth and expansion and rise within consciousness, all of the things that are taking place on a global scale, everything from the positive things that are playing out, but of course, more importantly, through times of the challenge of the losses of some of the bigger things happening on our world stage. I just think that we as mediums, as healers, as light bringers, as peacekeepers are needed more than ever. So I want to say just thank you to not only just showing up in this conversation tonight, but to all of those who are out in the world doing this work in some way, just to know that I love and appreciate your effort as we join in contribution together. So just such an important time for us to, be called to help and make a difference. And I think it's also a really great day to be a medium. I think in this day and age, God bless all of the people who came before, all of the mediums, that were here that really cleared the pathway for us to show up and do this work today, as well as knowing that here we are and we continue to clear the pathway for mediums yet to come. So to begin, I just want to take an opportunity in that praise and gratitude and in the rejoicing of each and every person's purpose through mediumship. I want to invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath in, and I'm going to do the same. And just fall into the breath, to the inhale and the exhale, just allowing for this rejoice and praise of gratitude of what we give thanks for, to give thanks for what sets us apart, what sets us forward on a path that is, not traveled by many and often perhaps judged or, many people afraid of even this direction and path, the one that calls us forward, that is of the light, that is of the love, that is of something larger, than all of us. So in celebration and gratitude, as we come collectively together, as we come together globally in this union of purpose, this union of light, we just praise and rejoice for everything that is coming, to be, all that is unfolding for you, for me, for all of us as a result of the willingness and the decision for so many mediums to step forward, to do this work, to honor the direction and this greater feeling of to be of service, to help and support others through the connection to the non-physical world. And so we celebrate every single person who's here, every effort that's being made, to those who have, as I said earlier, to those who have been, who came before, and in honoring of those yet to come, we celebrate and rejoice, and just taking this path less traveled, this way that is so right for us, this way that is in honoring of our truth, this way that is of something more that works through me, that works through you, that works through all of us. This great, this great universe, and celebrating how it brings us all together, the synchronicity, the divine timing, the space in between that allows us to grow, to heal, to come into a full awakening and understanding of what is authentic and true for us on a much deeper level and on a much larger scale. And so in the prayer and gratitude and just saying thank you, thank you, thank you for this opportunity, for the conversation, this opportunity to be of service, this opportunity to come together. How lucky we are, how sacred this is. Our time, our energy, our hearts, our light, all united, coming together as one. And I invite you now to take a deep breath in. And just as you exhale, imagine that a beautiful grounding cord just drops from your spine and just let it fall deep into Mother Earth. The sacred connection, the feeling the grounding, feeling supported, loved, cared for during some of the greatest of times and even in some of the most uncertain times. Steadfast and connected to the light within and being held by Mother Earth in support of our purpose and in support of humanity and this great awakening. I could just hang out here. This is just so nice. I can feel you guys all settled and grounded and that breath that unites. But of course, that isn't why we're here tonight. So bringing us back to the conversation. Oh my gosh, I'm really, really looking forward to tonight's conversation. I have Pamela Beamish who is joining me tonight. Pamela is a transformational life coach and who really helps other people to reignite a sense of joy in their lives, really helping people to understand the power that they have inside of themselves to create their life, to, heal from their past, to make it through and rise above anything that may come up. And I love that she, our connection even many, many years ago started out with the fact that of this connection to the unseen world in terms of mediumship, in terms of her calling to something more, even when at that time yet neither her or I really understood what that would look like. Pamela, I want to say hello, good evening, and welcome you to tonight's conversation. Hi. Hi, I can't hear you. Your microphone is muted.
There we go. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm good. I'm good. I'm feeling so much energy here tonight. Like it just feels so incredibly purposeful for this conversation. And I love that we have the chance to do this together. So thank you for, making time out of your busy schedule as well in order to be here and share your story, your wisdom, and and support, of course, everyone here in their unfolding of life as we know it. So Pamela, as I said earlier at the introduction, who would have known that all those years ago, that very first connection that you and I ever had, that it would lead to the work that you're doing today? Like, I mean, wow, I just feel like I've been, a part of your journey right from the grassroots of everything.
Well, you were the pivotal part of that whole thing because I was totally lost and just the timing and everything in what I was going through. I didn't have the person that I really needed to talk to or to even explain it to,
Right, right. Oh my gosh. Well, of course, I know your story. I know how it all unfolded. But if you can just share with everyone tuning in, like, when did you start having experiences with the spirit world? What led you to awaken to the fact that there is, that there were these individuals looking to communicate with you, to the fact that you had this support and this help by your side?
You, you know, years ago, as I was thinking back, when did it start? All of a sudden it started triggering other things too in my life in the younger years where I kind of blocked it. I was an only child till I was 10 years old. I had no siblings really until that time. So a lot of my time was spent alone or reading and that kind of thing. But it was the passing of my grandfather, in that, you get intuitive hits in that, but it was his death that really made me question and maybe solidify what I was thinking all along. And he was of sound mind when he passed away. Like, we were 3 days 3 days before he passed away, I had taken my daughter to visit him in the hospital, and he had just finished his breakfast, and would have been 4 at the time, and she was standing beside him, and they were talking about how he liked his oatmeal, and he asked her, how do you eat yours, and kind of thing. And I was sitting at the end or the foot of his bed, and all of a sudden he looked past me and up above me, and he goes, "Hey, there's my mother."
Oh.
And it's like, And Dayton's looking up and she's just smiling, not knowing kind of what's going on. And I'm wondering too, at that age, did she see that as well?
Right.
And it took me back, and then he went right into back. Well, do you put honey on it or brown sugar? And like, he didn't miss a beat. And,
Wow.
and like I said, he was of sound mind. And so that was the longest drive home from the hospital, because who am I going to talk to
Right.
about that experience? And I told him I would come back in about 3 days with our oldest, because she was in school at the time. And the evening that he passed, we were supposed to visit him the next day. And that evening, the girls were out on the lawn. It was around supper time. And I just, oh my gosh, this is such the most spectacular sunset ever. And it's just, there was so much beauty in it. And I said, stay there. I'm going to run in and grab the camera. And I came back out and I took the picture. And at the same time, the house, the phone rang in the house, and it was my mother to say, your grandpa passed away.
Oh.
And it's just like, it's okay, because it was, I won't say it's okay. It was like, oh, because that whole sunset and that feeling of, there was calmness, serenity around it too. And I guess we grew up, you didn't talk about death. Death was not in the discussion whatsoever. It was a scary thing growing up for me.
Yes.
And I, when he passed, they did a would you call it a wake, where it was an open casket, and I was terrified of that.
Oh.
And in those moments, in that sitting, and everyone had left, and I had gone up to see him, and it was just like, in that second, it's just like, oh my gosh, that is not him. And all of a sudden it was just like, oh, there's something right above me. And it's just like, oh my gosh, you're not in this body. You're not in this body, and you're right here, you know?
Wow.
And so it's like, it was just those little things. And then after the funeral, about 3 days after, that's when it was like, it was visitation. You know, it was just like the whispers, get up, get up. And and it was just like, all of a sudden I'd see him at the foot of my bed. He said, get up, look out the window. And it was just like, oh my gosh, and my husband's sleeping. And it's like, okay, am I imagining these things? You know, and to go to the window, and then it was like, I could smell toast, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, is there something burning downstairs? But it wasn't burnt, and it was the smell of toast and honey. And that was one thing. And that, you know, you talk about the signs and the symbols. And I was laughing at Laura's thing. She says, don't give me dimes, and don't give me feathers, and don't give me bugs, right? And it was just like, as a kid at Grandma and Grandpa's, when the honey pot came out, it was creamed honey. That was that was like gold at Grandma and Grandpa's, right? And he would say, who wants honey on their toast? And we'd all line up, and he would dole out the honey, right? And then it was just like, okay, here we go. And then it was the lamp on the piano too. And then I knew it was him. And then just all those experiences started to play out. And even there was one dream, and you know, I think you had one question last night about like those times when it's so vivid, and you wake up because you're so desperate to grab onto the physical, their physical body, to say, you are here, you know. And that was another experience too, like right after that as well. So
wow. Isn't it amazing? I think it's so beautiful in this, you know, as you said, you know, your grandfather, that was your first experience with death. And you explain, you know, at the wake, how he's in the casket. And I know that was, you know, it was for my grandmother. I had like the similar kind of stories, where it's like, it was my first death experience, where I could see her physically in the casket in front of me. And yet she was standing and talking to me right beside me. It was like, you can't explain it. And as you said, you have nobody to talk to, right? And you think you're imagining it, etc. But it's just this realization. And I think that's when I think it registered to me, even at that age, where this realization that there was something more that I was experiencing that perhaps other people weren't. And, it was, and again, coming in, accepting it understanding it for myself. Do you find that this was a challenge for people in your world to accept this about you? Like, did you run into some challenges with that? I know I certainly
Um,
did.
I tried to share it with my family. I was like, oh, and I just,
Mm.
who you can share it with and who you can't. Like you can just feel with the mediumship, I feel everything. Like
Yeah.
I wish there are days that I wish I could download like you, but it comes in as feelings, right? And
Yes.
so it's just like, okay, this is that, and you're navigating through that, right?
Navigating it. Yes.
And you just know who you can share. And I've shared with a
Mhm.
few family members. And then it's funny because I know they're observing, in certain things. And then you'll have the ones that'll kind of sneak in and say, I have a question. Like I'm
Uh-huh.
experiencing some stuff, but don't tell anybody.
But don't tell you, I keep it the secret, right? Yeah, I know.
So, but yeah,
Yeah, you
so
bring up such a good point, and I think this is the other piece too, and such an important message to share with people tuning in is that yeah, it's not about telling everybody. You don't have to tell everyone in terms of, coming out, so to speak, as being someone who is sensitive to the non-physical world. There are the people, and you have a sense or feeling, and it's just like there are people where you know that this is something that can be shared, and then there are times when you're holding back, and you're not holding back because out of fear. You're holding back really of just honoring them in terms of where their beliefs lie. Like, to me, this is not about proving it to anyone. I don't have to my job is not to convince anyone that life after death exists. My job is to be open and readily available to help those who are seeking and who already believe. So I think there you bring up such a good point. It's just a matter, you do get a sense or feeling this is a safe conversation I can have, or I'm not going to go there with this person.
and there's some times where I have not passed on messages to somebody that I'm standing with if
Yeah.
I don't know. You just feel that. And
Yeah.
then there's some where it's such an urgency that you almost blank out in a way where
Yeah.
it's like a vibration. And it's like whoosh, whoosh, and you cannot focus. I remember trying to make supper one night and I'm trying to peel potatoes. I could not function peeling potatoes. Like, go to the phone, go to the phone. And it's just
Wow.
like, I'm not going to the phone. And it's just like, you have no control over in a way,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
sometimes in a way, right? It's such an urgency.
Yes. Yes.
And then
Yeah.
once it's done, it's just and it's like, okay, and I ease into it. I say, okay, so what are your thoughts about this? Let me know, because I think I have something that is very urgent. And it's always been accepted,
Yeah.
when it's been like that. And it's just like,
Yeah.
you know, so,
I
and
always,
then you go
it
back to
is
life.
exactly. And again, and you can be picking up and getting messages for people that are beside you. And I always, in those instances, I always give it back to spirit. It's like, you guys want me to give a message to your loved one, then you make arrangements for that to happen. Like, I'll certainly do that, but I don't ever put myself into that uncomfortable position of just, randomly doing readings for people. I
Right.
think there's so many factors in that, as well as you never know if someone believes. I've actually heard of mediums getting like clocked from saying something because somebody, didn't agree with the fact that this is possible. You don't know
Yeah.
what the relationship was. Does the person even want to hear for them? Not to put yourself in an awkward position. So I always give it back to spirit and say, you guys orchestrate it and make it happen. And then I know exactly what you're saying, that overwhelming sense. It's almost the only way I can describe it is like momentary disassociation from reality, right?
Yes.
It's like in that moment, you can't function, you can't see, you can't focus, you don't know what you're doing. All you know is you need to get this message delivered, right? And then once
That's
it's done, then it's like, oh, I'm back in reality again.
No,
Uh,
so
and I love when you say that too. Like, it's just that it's just something that you just know. It's just that the urgency of what it feels, and you've come to honor that for whatever it means, however it fits for someone. And of course, when that happens, it's usually very well received. So
it
yeah,
is.
yeah. You
Yeah.
bring up another really good point. Of course we can look at it. We don't want, I mean, you do astrology as well. So, this isn't about, we're not looking at, the astrological makeup of things, although there are influences within that. And of course, for you as a water sign, there's a lot of feeling that goes on, a lot of clairsentience, a lot of clair empathy. There's a whole triggering of an emotional body that you've had to learn how to navigate and translate energetically. Whereas for me, as a as a strong air sign, let's just say it's strong. It's just like it's just a constant download of information, and it's like I don't even have a chance to think about what I'm saying until after it's all out. It's just this
Right.
download. So there's different ways, based on, again, mediums in terms of where their natural skill sets are that also make them the messenger that they are as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was one of, I guess, one of the things that I was always worried about. I do my sessions like I'm a Pisces with a Scorpio ascendant or rising, so it's almost like it's done in secrecy or privacy, and
Right.
I don't do my sessions, my mediumship sessions with the person in front of me.
Right.
I am by myself and I'm doing the notes because there is too many I feel that there'd be too many distractions with the person in the room when they're coming, when those messages are coming through my body, because
Right.
I'm noticing every little thing,
Yes.
and
Yes.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
so,
and for me, and I can relate to that in terms of, because I'm a Cancer rising, so I get a lot of that feeling energy that's there too. But I also have, Gemini sun, Aquarius moon. And so and for me, I find that I can talk faster than I can write. So it's easier for me to have the person present.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. So, for you, I know you shared your story about your grandfather. I want to kind of fast forward now, all these years later. You are a transformational coach. You're working and doing sessions for people. You are now, as you said, doing readings. And in that, do you have a story to share that was just like so phenomenal that it just really solidified your belief in yourself as a medium, and of course, in terms of life after death? Do you have something special to share with everyone?
um Specifically mediumship, like in the mediumship kind of thing.
Yeah,
um
like in something you've
I was
received or something you
okay.
that just kind of blew, like it was like in that moment where you went, no, this is absolutely real.
I remember doing a reading for a lady, and the first one, there was three that had come in kind of thing all at once. It was like, okay, one at a time. And I had done the baby and it was a miscarriage.
Mm.
And it kind of triggered something in me. And I wrote my notes and I said, okay, I'm going to have to break from this. We're going to put a pause on these other two kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I actually had to step away. And I remember, okay, I'm going to go have a soak in the tub, and just we're gonna start over again. And I remember opening my eyes up and noticing a lady at the taps, and she's smiling and she's going and she's pointing to somebody, and I look over and say, oh my god, you guys were in the other room, like you're not supposed to be here. And the gentleman is over top of the tub, and he's going, like he cut his three fingers and he's going like this, like this. Okay, I know you cut your fingers, but you're going to have to step out of my bathroom because
Yes.
I don't know if you can see me or not, but
Right.
it puts you in a very vulnerable spot too. And she's like,
Yes.
okay, this is real. This is real.
Yes.
And you're learning about boundaries and stuff like that. And it's
Mhm.
just, and when I went to take the message back, which I thought was really, is one of those things that I learned in the process at the beginning was the first loved one that came through was for my client. The other two were for my client's friend that was sitting beside her
Ah,
at the time
yeah.
of the reading. So
Yeah.
it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
that was kind of a big reading for me to see, oh my gosh, you can just move wherever, and no matter where I am, or and just,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just kind of one of those things.
Those
And
boundaries are so important because I know exactly that, just so that you can have like your privacy, your sacred time, your
yes.
alone time. It's like I wouldn't let just any stranger come in the bathroom with me on a regular basis. You don't get to do that in spirit. I don't care who you are. Like, that's not acceptable behavior, And so being able to establish those boundaries is such an important part of doing this work, because without it, it's just that constant inundation that takes place. And you also bring up a really good, point here as well too, Pamela. Like, there's a module that I have in the level 1 program, and it's called Where Two or More Gather. And where two or more gathers is the moment you have two people sitting together and you're connecting with one of those person's individuals, you're suddenly doing a group reading, because everybody's loved one shows up. There's no way to separate it out. And I learned that by default as well when I first started doing this work. And people would say, is it okay if my mom comes along and listens? Or is it okay if my best friend, just comes and sits? And oh, yeah, sure, not a problem. But then what was happening was the person that was coming along was getting more of the reading than the person who had paid
Right.
for the session, right? And it was like, whoa, hang on. That was it was like by default that I discovered that you get two people together, it's automatically a group reading. There's no separating it out where spirit's concerned. They just see the opportunity and they go for it.
And another thing, for those that are on the call that don't know my family, we have a son that lives with Down syndrome, and so that was very significant. In who would have thought that what I would be experiencing with my own mediumship, that I'd be applying it to my son's daily navigation through his life.
Yeah.
We're talking on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Where going back to even astrology chart, he's a 0 degrees Gemini. And so it's that doorway between the communication being downloaded all the time, but him maybe not being able to verbalize it, right? And then
Right.
slow and steady. And
Yes.
that's how we navigate for Nicholas.
Yeah.
Never thought once that the mediumship would help. And and we've had like even him going to school and stuff. This is a typical day for us. And it was one of the teachers he was smitten with at school. And all of a sudden, one of the EAs called, said, okay, he's bringing a ball home, but he wants to put the ball underneath his shirt and he thinks it's funny. And it's like, I have a baby.
Right.
So we went through this whole process of this baby for a couple weeks, and we just returned the ball the next day. And then one day the ball wasn't there on an afternoon coming home. And he walked into the house and he went right downstairs, and he was different kind of thing. And then I could hear him crying downstairs, and I opened up the door and it's just like, are you okay? It's like, no, Mom, leave me alone. And so all I could think of was, oh, is this a miscarriage? And he's picking up, like, it's a whole other world with Nicholas, and what he picks up, and then try to navigate that. And I reached out a couple months later to this teacher, and I said, I'm not sure where you're at, but this is what Nicholas presented to me. And she said, yes, I quietly miscarried, kind of thing.
Oh.
And that, and to watch him and be very observant of what, as a medium, you're watching as well, right?
Yes. Yes.
The little signs and symbols and stuff like that. And quite a few months down the road, the ball reappeared after school underneath his belly. And it's just like, okay, and
wow.
And even the baby hadn't arrived yet, just things like that, the other times,
Yes.
and even this weekend we were combining. We came back to the house, and that's, for me, thank goodness for mediumship, because it's like a checklist with him. I came to the house to grab a few things. We're heading back to the field. The guys were out in the shop, and he said, Mom, fire inside. And he kept going, the fire truck. And we have a semi with a flat deck trailer that's already with water tanks ready to go, because harvest, you don't know.
Yes.
It's so dry. And he goes, fire truck inside, a fire. And I'm going, okay. And it's just like the checklist. Show me your iPad. Let me go through. What were you looking at? I asked the guys, did you weld something really, really quick? Did you talk about the fire? Did you talk about the water truck? Did you talk about moving the water truck? And it's like a checklist. And then he was so insistent. And then all of a sudden he let it go. And I'm thinking, I don't want to leave. I do not want to leave this
Right.
yard because I'm thinking
Right.
of fire. Walked around the fire truck or the water truck looked inside, looked to see if he had put something in the adapters, that kind of thing. We get to the field, and within 2 hours, one of the combines breaks down, and the guys opened up the combine, and here one of the components had caught on fire, and it had burnt so bad, and the piece that was missing had fallen off in the stubble somewhere.
Wow.
But he was not upset. Nick was not upset. And it's just
Yeah.
like, oh, it was taken care of. But he
Yeah.
was showing me that,
Of
and
what was to come. It was like he
yes,
was telling you, Mom, there's going to be a fire inside of this combine,
yeah.
right?
So yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, and just even watching just all the little things where he will talk to the other side
Yeah.
and constantly,
Yeah.
so it's just it's part of our daily routine now, and
Right.
so
Right.
if a
Like
client
it's
comes and it says, I can I tell you the craziest thing? Or you're gonna think I'm crazy. It's like, probably not.
no, I always tell people, no, don't worry, you're hanging out with me now. It's gonna get weird, so bring the crazy. It's gonna happen. One of the things I remember, of course, with Nicholas and his sensitivity, even when he was little, and some of our initial conversations, it was really, how energy works. The fact that he was so energetically sensitive to the non-physical world, that even you, as in discovering your own energy abilities, that it became a way and means of you to communicate with him when he was little. Like even everything in terms of you being able to show him almost in your mind that he was going to enjoy the new food you put in front of him
Yes.
instead of him going into resistance. So you really became skilled at being able to speak energy to him.
Yes. And you look at his chart, and his purpose is to make everyone else communicate for him or for others,
Wow.
And so,
Wow. Amazing.
so
Yeah. So
yeah.
incredible. Oh my gosh, so incredible. At what point, Pam, did you decide that, you just needed to devote yourself to helping other people? That in you realizing your connection to the non-physical world, to the angels, to understanding the law of attraction, to looking at the astrological makeup of an individual. At what point did you just say, I have to help other people do this work? I know you took Reiki like years and years ago, which kind of opened up your world to energy medicine. But what was the shift for you? When did it say, I need to devote my life this way?
It was just going through depression for a short period of time when I was like in my early 40s, and I felt very alone. And it's just like all those little things that can help a person,
Mhm.
and just be able to notice the little things around you that are showing you always, like everything is there, and if you just grab onto something, it takes you to the next, and it just all I love transformation and healing. I just
Yeah.
and everyone should have that opportunity. Nobody should live in a dense, heavy, like we do
Right.
heavy lifting as well in this life, but
Yeah.
when you can do it a little bit easier and just use those what we're given, those
Mhm.
intuitive hits and stuff, like, and to guide you,
Right.
and many of your courses I've taken over the
Yeah,
years,
right.
right? And it's just solidifies and opens up to other possibilities too,
Right, absolutely. It's just like wherever you are, let those be the first initial steps with it. You never know where it's going to take you. Just like, as I said at the start of our conversation, all those years ago, our initial meeting, in terms of helping you at that time through just our initial conversation, even on the phone, I remember was just like incredible right from the moment we started talking. But it was like just from that, and just how that path has unfolded, and you just followed the next step, you just followed the next path, you just went, and just it, spirit takes you on a journey. Your angels are constantly guiding you and helping you to find what are the, your purpose, your skill set, your connection to the non-physical world. And there's all these little invitations everywhere. You spoke about, being as mediums, why we're so observant. And it's like we do, we have our observer on all the time, because everywhere where there's something significant that's being spoken to us or communicated to us, whether it be through signs and symbols, through animals, through nature, through the things other people are saying, to the feelings and sensations that are moving through our body. We just are in a constant state of observation to the world around us.
Yes, I
Yeah. Oh,
totally agree. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. What do you think has been your biggest challenge in all of this? Like, was it in accepting this for yourself? Was it, you know, your fears? What were you challenged by?
Probably sharing, like who do I share with? That would have been probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
Another one was at the very beginning, almost getting hung up on how do I analyze the signs and the symbols coming through, and
Yeah.
realizing that that's a no-go. You take it, you take that message and then you hand it over to the next person. It's not up to you. It's not your responsibility
Right.
to put those pictures together,
Yeah.
or those pieces together. And I've I've caught myself trying to be where a loved one is trying to come through and say something. It's just like, well, that I can't say that. That's like kind of rough. Like that's not how I would present it. And like to give you a prime example is I had one client come in and I'm trying to say, she's bigger chested, that kind of thing. You know how everything goes together and that. And then all I hear is uniboob, uniboob. And it was like done, right? Or even like the little things, like you try and dress it up. Don't dress it up to make it, because some
Right.
of them are like just raw and you just, there it is.
Yes.
And you hand it over, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's such a great thing to bring up as well, is that we are just the messengers. It's not our job to figure out how it fits in somebody's life. Our job is just to relay the message and not lose the translation of what's being given, right? The uniboob, like things like that. Things that you wouldn't normally say that become some of the most evidential core pieces for someone, where in that moment they know without a doubt that they're connecting to their loved one, because that would be exactly, I've heard time and time again, oh my gosh, that's exactly what they would have said to me. Exactly.
yeah.
Even sometimes, even as I'm delivering the message, even maybe the way I'm holding my body, where how I'm holding my hands, the different things where they'll say, you're even standing like them, or you're even sitting like they sat in the chair, and you don't even realize what's happening. It's not like, and it's not that spirit's coming into your body. I think that's there is a form of mediumship that is done that way, the trance mediumship. But in the approach that I use is what's referred to as the mental mediumship. So it's all working with the intuitive mind. And so this is where your ego is still very present, you're still very aware, and there's an overlay that happens within the auric field that causes a reaction to your body. Like there's the messaging system that shows up. So it's always so fun. And I think it's great. Like you're just the messenger. How it fits is not up to us to figure out and translate. The signs and symbols over time become meaningful, and they become a part of, the messaging.
And there's
We as mediums understand a message behind something, based on what they show, right? But initially, it's like, yeah, I'm not sure how this fits, but this is what I'm getting. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, there too, I think that's where a lot of people put pressure on themselves as well. And I know I certainly did in the beginning, was to try to figure it out before I delivered the message to someone. Like I spent so much wasted, really, so much time being hung up trying to say, how does this fit? I'm not sure what this means, as opposed to just handing it over.
yeah.
Just hand it over. Just hand it over. Yeah. And spirit uses our bias, right? So the things that we are familiar with, the things that we have had experience, job titles, our roles in families, whatever it is, things even in terms of our own training. Like I'm sure, like, I mean, I sit down and I can talk about, without seeing an astrology chart, I can tell somebody you have a transit moving through your fourth house right now that it's going to probably end about March. Once that's over, you're going to see there's going to be a big shift in movement forward for them. And they're like, oh my God, how did you know that? Well, because I was given that information, right? I can't explain how I know. It's just that it's a bias. And so we have a language and we have a way of communication based on our history, our stories, and everything. And spirit uses that information. So sometimes, how does it fit? Sometimes spirit's saying, well, what do you think what does it make sense to you for? How does it make sense? It's not what about Google says the symbol means. It's about what the symbol means to you that becomes the greater message for someone.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, so
And
good.
I did have an experience too. You'd gone back earlier and asked me. There's even I spend a lot of time on the mower, and that's kind of my meditation. And a lot of messages come through, even if it's for later on in the day. And it's those things that it's not just in the session. It can be a buildup of the session to the
Yes,
session too, right? So,
yes,
and
yeah,
it's quite interesting too, is when if something doesn't, if the client doesn't understand maybe what that one piece of puzzle is, you usually get a call or an email later on, do you
yeah.
remember this? And they were able to put it together,
Right, exactly, right.
and
Which
that's when they
becomes
start.
valuable information
Yes,
to you as the medium, right? Yeah,
yes. So,
yeah. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I love how you're saying you get your downloads and you get, as soon as you get on the mower, it's like your time, your meditation. I always find if I'm struggling with something and I can't figure it out and I need a solution, I just go to the bathroom. Because the moment I go to the bathroom, I get into flow and boom, there's my answer. I'll often walk out of the bathroom and I'm like, I've got it. I know exactly what I need to do. I know exactly what that meant.
I have a friend who does ironing, and I said, "Good for you, but who the heck does ironing in these days?"
Exactly. I don't even know if I have an ironing board. I don't know if that's a thing anymore. Oh my gosh, so good. Pamela, what do you have as far as words of advice or wisdom to maybe the mediums who are hesitant in terms of moving forward in their development, starting their practices, maybe, just uncertain about blending their world with how they live their life and bringing this to as part of the equation for them? What wisdom do you have to offer for them?
I would say it starts with the person. You don't just start with your own healing, and all of a sudden everything kind of flows in quite easy. Look after yourself,
Yeah.
experience it for yourself, and then grab onto whoever appears in your life. And they'll appear for a reason, and to just do it, to not wait. Um, they say, oh, I'm waiting for perfect timing. I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for that,
Right,
and it's
right.
almost like you have to grab onto those moments, because everything will else. Once you take that one step, everything else plays out for you. Everything
Mhm.
will align. The clients will align, everything, your
Yeah.
studies and that. So,
I
it
love
just
that you say,
really
I
starts.
love that you say that. Just take the step. I have seen it happen time and time again where people have just felt like they need to do this, they need to take the class, they need to study this. And, money can be always a big hang up for people when you say, I'm just going to wait until I have the money. And I've had a lot of people who have found that they've just said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I don't know where the money comes from. And they'll say the yes to following through. And then before you know it, the money within a few days, boom, they have a check that arrives or something that was, that they had for sale for a long time, suddenly sold for more money than they anticipated. Like it's amazing how spirit takes care of us. The
It
universe,
just that
right?
nudges you, right?
Right,
Yes. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, just take the step. Just I love that. That's so good. And then grab hold of it. And then grab hold of the
Yeah.
people, grab hold of what you can with it. Oh my gosh, so great. Now, of course, in this event, not only do we have mediums who are, looking to understand themselves more, gleaning a lot of the advice and perspective and tips and tricks in navigating their sensitivity to the spirit world, but we also have a lot of people joining in as well who are grieving the loss of their loved ones. And I think this is where the beauty of being a medium, what becomes such purposeful work is because death is such a hard and difficult thing for us to overcome. You are a transformational coach. Death is a form of transformation, whether we understand that or not at the time. What advice or what you have to share with those who are attending that are grieving the loss of their loved one?
First of all, just to allow yourself, you're changed forever. Like when you lose someone, when they pass over, you're changed forever. You move into a place where you want them so physically in front of you, like,
Yeah.
and to hold them, and that, and I know even the passing of my grandfather, to know that they are there, they are there, and they're just in a different form with the messages and that, and I know even my own experience with a loved one, that it seemed like, when are you coming? When are you coming to give me that sign and symbol, And I went to another medium, and he did come in, but you had talked yesterday about, depending on how much they go through in a life too. And I truly believe that when they have some heavy lifting in life, that it's almost like they need time, even though time doesn't really exist on the other side.
Right. Yes.
It's they need that healing time. It's almost like they
Mhm.
go into I don't know. I think not a cocoon, but just like a
Mhm.
healing place, where it's just like, okay, let me just process all this. What did I experience? Um, like, what did I learn from
Right.
and and um and just be open to those dreams. Like,
Yeah.
I like, just ask them to come in, show me something that I can't miss,
Mhm.
and and they will. It's just, being in grief is just, it's such a heavy vibration,
Mhm.
just to try and, okay, I'm looking through this, I'm trying to navigate, and just be open to those little things and those glimpses,
Right.
and
Yeah. And again, grief is something that, it needs to be felt. There's no shortcut through
oh
grief at all. And depending on the relationship that was lost will determine what it's like, through those days and weeks and months following. Every relationship is special, but the degree that we grieve is always an indication of how much we loved. And so we also need to give space and time for that. And there's no fast tracking through that.
no,
There isn't. And it comes and goes. It comes in waves. And I always say we never get over the loss of the loved one, but we learn to how to rise above it. And what I mean is that we rise above the grief, which is an energy just shift that takes place, where we're able to find a new rhythm in our life without the person. But then again, we can get hit, and there's another layer of grief, and grief needs to be honored. It needs to be nurtured. We just need the stillness and the sacredness of that as well. It's like honoring yourself in grief is one of the ways you can honor your loved one too.
yeah,
Yeah, because they
and
do. They go
talk.
through healing, on the other side. They're in a life review, and you know what it's like when we've kind of felt like, just like, here's a real light analogy. When you've had so much going on in your life and you've done lots of heavy lifting, and you just need the day at the spa. You just want to you just want to enjoy your day at the spa, right? Without any interruption. Kind of how I see that play out for them.
And I know, and just growing up, when someone passed, you weren't to speak of them. And it's just
Right.
like, that's the last thing, that I want to speak about them. And
Yes.
those memories, right? And and to see a client's shoulders, and just weight released when those signs come up and those messages come up
Mhm.
for them. And it's just, and that's me walking out of the session with you, that
Yeah.
very first session.
Yeah.
And it's just like, thank you. And I
Yeah.
knew it all along. In the heart of hearts, that when those signs are coming through.
Right. Right. I always use, again, when you came, I mean, we've done different work together over the years, but there was one session in particular where I learned something so profoundly about the spirit world, which is something that in my program I have used as an example, where I say that I was doing a reading for a client one time, and her granny was telling her all about the renovations in her kitchen and what she was liking going on. And the whole time talking about, all how that was playing out. And in the meantime, there was an airplane going over my house and it sounded like it was going to land in my backyard. And I said to you, I said, oh my God, I'm so distracted by the airplane. It's so loud. And you're like, oh yeah, yeah, Granny was a pilot, And that was where I realized that spirit talks in multiple ways at multiple times. And so it's important for us to pay attention to what's going on within us, the feelings, sensations, and this one conversation here, but also to pay attention to the external environment as well, because your granny was bringing in that airplane so that I could further confirm for you that it was her. It's like, oh yeah, she was a pilot.
And I remember there was an ant that went across the carpet or something. It's, oh, this is an ant, and it's just like, yeah, it is. Those
little things, right?
Even as you're driving,
Yes.
just to be so observant. And I think it's just having Nicholas too. I'm constant watching his environment, and it's just like it's easier for me to notice, and I like noticing rather than feeling all the time,
Right. I know, because you're such a feeler. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to take a moment. I'm going to go over into the chat. If anybody has any questions for Pamela, for me here as we're going, please feel free to type them in. We're going to take a few minutes to answer things up, going through again some of the hellos. As I said earlier, we have from Macklin, Saskatchewan, from Michigan, New Brunswick, Nanaimo, BC, from Newfoundland, from Edmonton. Oh my gosh. Hello, people saying hello, late, but I'm making it. Oh my gosh, Faith said that you had talked before about how spirit came into the bathroom when you had taken the time out, right? And they were coming in. She said she had someone come to her while she was in the tanning bed and she was completely unclothed. It's like they're squeezing in there with her at the same time. Like, get out.
Totally oblivious that what we're feeling, and you're showing me this, and it's like,
in the last conversation of Medium's World, I had a lady ask, oh my God, like, are they, when we're like making love in our bedrooms, like, are they watching us? Like, she was all of a sudden real, like, well, yes, but they don't see it in the same form of what they're just seeing energy. They're not seeing it quite in the same way. But I think that's hilarious, Faith. It's just like, my gosh, yeah. Sorry, unless you're paying for the tanning session, you can then we'll have a conversation in here. Brenda says she loves the story about your son. So amazing, so amazing. Donica says you are a transformational life coach. Does that mean more of the transformation people go through is grief and loss of their loved ones? Or do you work with people when they feel that they're stuck, they're lost, they're in their lows? Do you help with coaching, with strategies, to work and move through important transitions during pivotal periods and times in their life?
Yes, that was my goal.
Yes to everything.
That was my goal, right from going through depression. It was a transition. Who am I? Where am I at? What have I experienced? Where am I going?
Yeah.
And it does, and it's a lot of it is I coach moms that have got lost in once your kids start to leave home and stuff, that who am I? And where is that joy or that passion? It's just like you're kind of sitting there. And that's what I was feeling. At the time, I had one graduating. I had everything was fine, but it was within me too, right?
Yes.
Yes. We have all those
cover the gamut, right? It's exactly it. It's amazing. Like, I look at my coaching programs too, and again, it's based on the coaching programs for all of those things to help people in navigating, which are based on the very things that I had to learn how to overcome and deal with it. And it becomes, the tools. We make what are the goals? What are we looking to accomplish? And then using, different tools, whether it be astrology or connection to guides and angels and loved ones on the other side, to formulate those programs that are unique to the individuals, right? They become individualized. It's not a coaching in a box where it's like everybody else that's out there, it's like a coaching based on what does this person need? You
Yeah.
know, I always say, and I know you relate to this too. I can think I know what someone needs, but it's when I sit down, it's when I connect, it's when I open up to receive the guidance that it becomes a clear path and trail. And now I know how to empower them, what tools they need, what course or direction to support them down so that they're able to have their greatest transformation.
And you know, when you're stuck, you don't know what you want. And those conversations are so important, because I've had so many people say, okay, I want to come in and do this session. And then you have the conversation around it. And it's just like, no, I think you need this. So let's talk about
Yeah.
this. And all of a sudden you get, thank you. That's not what I thought it was. And I said, no, it's
Right.
this, you know? And
Right.
so, but
Yeah. And it ends up being, it's like it's almost in some ways when they come forward, they have an idea about what they need as well. They have an idea or a forethought as to what they're looking for, but then it's based on the guidance. It's like, as you said, actually, this is where we're going to take it instead, because this is what I'm being shown is going to help you the most. And then it does. And then they're coming back and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe, even their initial thing that they were looking for seems to
yes.
get solved and taken care of, doesn't it?
Yeah. And there's so much clarity, but when you're going through those transitions and stuff like that, you don't see it. And all of a sudden it
Right.
just one little thing or a
Mhm.
conversation or a word, and all of a sudden, oh, we're over here. And all of a sudden it
Right.
takes care of it. And okay, let's look at this,
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's brilliant. It's so great. Um, oh, see, as Faith says, she says it was a sweet moment though. He was actually showing up to thank her. So that's beautiful. It's still awkward. So Ashley says, I have a sister with limited verbal abilities. When I was a child, I used to pretend she was God's angel helping me to see the good in people. Aw, and the not so nice people. Now, as an adult, I know it's not pretend, it is her best ability.
yeah.
Right. Which, of course, you probably can relate to in terms of Nicholas.
I remember in one of those sessions, Bonnie, I remember being stared at with him in my arms and stuff like that. And I write about that in the book that I'm working on as well.
Yes.
And those feelings that I had. And I remember saying to you, I want to keep him at home so that nobody could hurt him, and I could protect him. And I remember you saying, you have to let him go on the school bus because he
Oh,
has a bigger job than you think,
yes.
and it's to
Yeah.
teach others and that. And but
Which
yeah.
is what he's done and which he continues to do,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
And
No.
I just feel he teaches me every day, and he grounds me every day too. And how lucky that she is able to have a family
Right.
member so close, and to open open your eyes to a whole other world and
Hmm.
take people along with you. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so
yeah.
beautiful. Oh my gosh. So beautiful. So Darlene asks, have you ever had an experience where you see a scene play out in your mind like a movie scene and have no idea what to do with it? I
Yes.
was driving through an area in southern Saskatchewan, nothing around me that I could see, and I had a very violent scene play out across my mind. I have no idea what to do with it.
I journaled it. I journal a lot because it came up later. It comes up later on because you don't understand at the moment of that it's presented. And I remember, I think I called you on something
You
too.
did.
It
Yes.
scared the crap out of me. And it's like, okay, is this mine or is this somebody else's? Like, show
Yeah.
me, spirit. And
Yeah.
it was released. But I do journal those experiences because they are scary. Some like not scary, but
Yes. It's
is this going to happen to
processing.
me? Is
Yes.
this going to happen to somebody else?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and lots of times you can see things ahead of time, or you
Hmm.
sense them.
Hmm.
And like I just journal them until and like even that one session, Bonnie, that I had, um where I knew I felt my miscarriage was a baby boy.
Yeah.
It was a baby boy. And you brought forth that spirit had come down and said, okay, we're going to change this up. We're going to bring him back. We could either do autism or we could do Down syndrome. And it's like, spirit said, let's do Down syndrome. It's so much more fun. And that's what That's what I needed in my life too, right? When I think about it. And
Yeah.
that day, that afternoon when I went home, he'd come home from off the bus. I had prepared a snack. And as always, I always ran my fingers through his hair. And it triggered that second. Not only was a weight was relieved off my shoulders with that session, it triggered
Oh,
something I'd written in my journal about 7 months prior. And it was a dream, or this played out. And here it was my grandfather holding this little redheaded boy who would have been like, he would have been a toddler, but I couldn't see his face. I didn't recognize him. And my grandpa is
oh.
hanging onto his hand and leading him away from me. But it was significant in that.
In
So,
that, exactly.
you
He
know,
changed his mind. He's coming back for a different experience.
yes. And it
Yeah.
was a scene. It's just like,
Yeah.
okay, well, what does
Yeah.
this mean? And when we made the connection, that da 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 da, everything played out in the, or I had clarity. And so
Right.
I would suggest write that scene down, even if you don't know what
Mhm.
it means, what it is. You may get more of a scene and add on to that as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And I think it's great. There's two ways of this too, Darlene, that I just want to add to that is that sometimes there are energy imprints that are held within lands and within the field of within a vortex or that we can move into. And as mediums, we can pass through that energy and we can get an instant download about the history or something that played out there that has nothing to do with anything in our lives. We just happen to stumble into it. We got the read. We saw something, but it's nothing that we need to do with it. I'm a firm believer, though, that if it's in front of me, it's for me in some way. So even at that, when I pass through energy fields like that, I always say a prayer or a blessing, like whoever was affected. I hope that I pray that they found peace. I pray that they're if the spirit concerned is settled and knows its stillness and has crossed over, and angels come forward and clear this off of me, release. If this is not for me, please release it from me. So I always ask for that to be cleaned and cleared so that I'm not carrying it. But I agree with Pam too. It's really helpful if it's still staying with you and you're still thinking about it over and over, then to go ahead and journal it, because we also get, just as Pam said, a premonition of something yet to come. And so we're often given information ahead of time. We don't know what to do with it, but it's information that's warranted. And all we want to do is kind of record it, keep it, and it will eventually make sense. I even tell my clients that too. When they receive certain guidance in a reading, like take it with you, put it in your back pocket. Spirit's going to make sure that it makes sense to you. And they do, and they contact me months and even years later to say, "Hey, Bonnie, do you remember in that session when you said this is what's happened?" Right? So we have, not only do we have access to what is in the past in someone's life, we're also privy in terms of some prophecy of some things yet to come. So we just, some things make sense and some things don't, but we just keep on flowing.
And another thing is to look at it and watch, have it mirror back to say, okay, what is it
Yes.
showing me about myself, my emotions, or even with me doing past life regression, it's putting you in a place, I felt this before, especially if it's really,
Right.
weighing heavy or something. There's some significance to that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of my theories in the program is that everything is something. And so, it's a matter of time before we get it all figured out.
that's right.
Brenda says, loves working with a coach. She loves receiving the guidance. Yay. I love that for you too, Brenda. Donica says, that's so great. And yes, so important to hear the guidance is in form of a quantum release and divine guidance in that form. It truly, truly is. Julie is asking here, do you feel past lives are an influence on the stuff that happens in this lifetime?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. It's like a bird's eye view. It's a bird's eye view of a lesson that you were supposed to have learned. And I'm looking up for those triggers. So yes,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
still separate from mediumship. Still
Right. And there still is, even in the, in saying that, it's even sometimes in readings where I'm being shown a past life connection, that there's something there, again, a lesson that needed to be replayed and learnt out. There can be karma that needed to be resolved in this lifetime, and so it's affecting. We can also have, and I know, Pam, you probably from your past life work as well, where there can be afflictions from other lifetimes. Like there's some things that didn't quite get released before we incarnated here, and it's almost like there's a crossover of timelines, and so we can
Yes.
just some things, it can affect us, most certainly. Yeah. Okay, so Darlene says she can describe that whole scene in as clear as can be, and it was probably 7 years ago, and she still can see it so incredibly clear. Yeah. Gail says it's so interesting to hear the different directions that mediums take, other than just sharing conversations with loved ones. Exactly, right? It's like I said to Pam on a post today. It's like we all kind of come into this on the same path that then diverges in so many unique ways that we get to utilize our connection to the other side and do the work that we feel most passionate about. And so it's about never losing that soul truth that, being a medium is like a part of your personality. You can't shake it. You can't run away from yourself. So you just learn to accept it and just embrace it and work with it. And then you can utilize it as a way and means to help do whatever kind of work you're doing. Like I said, I work with teachers, I work with lawyers, I work with, individuals who want nothing to do with doing readings for people. It's not just about loved ones. Being a medium is more than just talking to dead people. It really is. Yeah, yeah, it really, really is. So great. Oh my gosh. Well, that's awesome. So many great questions. Great conversation, Pamela. Oh my gosh.
I love
Thank
our
you.
conversations.
I know, me too. Always, always.
It's
Thank you
probably the
so.
shortest one.
We usually have, then there's the follow-up calls and the text messages for, several hours after some of those conversations.
True.
Oh my gosh, so great. I just want to say thank you again, Pamela, for coming here, sharing your wisdom, sharing your story. It's so remarkable about, the impact I think that your work is having in people's lives, but more importantly, in really being able to nurture your sweet, beautiful boy and learn to communicate and to really help other parents who maybe don't even realize that there's another way and means in which to reach their
Yes.
children. So
Yeah.
I think what the work you're doing is incredible. I'm so excited about where things, are going, and of course for your book, because I know we've been both tag teaming on that one too. And so I can't wait for it all to continue to unfold for you. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having me, and thank you
Yeah.
for the questions and listening too with your guests.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And thank you to everyone, of course, who's tuned in tonight to be a part of this conversation. We are back tomorrow night with our special guest is Susan Mayer. So I can't wait to bring Susan to the table and, of course, to continue this incredible, incredible conversation and helping you to understand more about a medium's world. All right, everybody, God bless, and I will see you here tomorrow night.